back, relax, and maybe get yourself a snack. Me and you gonna have a little chat about books. Hey guys, so I'm here today to talk about two books which I recently read and very much enjoyed. These two. I'm going to start by talking about this one because I finished this one up first. My husband's currently reading it, so that's why there is a bookmark in there. This is Bookshops and Bonedust by Travis Baldree. Now, this one is not actually out yet. I believe it comes out November this year, so pretty soon. But yes, I was really pleased to get sent this. I loved Legends and Lattes by Travis when I read it. I read it when it was still a self-published one, I think, and then it got picked up, and I could totally see why, and I'm super pleased that he's now writing more, not only in the world, but just in general. I think there's other books planned as well. So I'm very excited. I could not wait to get to this, and I'm really pleased that I picked it up now because it is very much a cozy read, cozy fantasy, exactly the kind of thing that I think is great for autumn and winter time of year, so it's a perfect release date, I think. It's the sort of book that you just fall into and you just kind of sit there and you read it all and you don't even notice the pages passing or the time passing and you just enjoy yourself, and that is exactly what happened with this. So if you've read Legends and Lattes, then this is actually a prequel to Legends and Lattes. It follows the main character Viv, who is our main character in Legends and Lattes, but you don't have to have read that because this all happens before that one, and it kind of is her backstory. Viv is some sort of barbarian-y kind of mercenary for hire character, and we pick up her story as she's gone into this big foray. She's been stabbed instantly because she's very reckless, and she then has to kind of recuperate in this town called Merk. Now that all happens pretty much instantly, so that's not a spoiler, but her story continues from that point onwards in this town, which is basically the backwater, back end of everything. There's not a lot there, and what is there feels a bit shabby and run down, and it doesn't feel like a lively, exciting place, which is where the young Viv wants to be. She wants to be in the action. She wants to be chasing down all these necromancers and bad guys in the world, but she's kind of stuck here. She's stuck recuperating. Now, we follow her as she goes out and explores this little town, and as part of her exploration, she comes across the bookshop, hence the name, and the bookshop is owned by a character who she befriends, and they have a kind of quest to maybe brighten up the bookshop. Alongside that, there is also the storyline of magic in this world, which is kind of very much an undertone to the actual story of friendship and found family and all that kind of stuff. But it's there, and there is a plot, and I do think that actually the magic of this one has some really interesting ideas. I will say that a lot of this story takes place in a bookshop and refers to different passages of books, so there are kind of extracts of different books that our characters are supposedly reading throughout this story, and I did enjoy that as a reader, of course, imagining dusty old bookshops full of amazing kind of hidden stories is no bad thing, and I liked the setting, and I think it's a perfect setting for a cozy read. I definitely enjoyed getting to know Viv and her backstory a little bit more, and kind of seeing how she ended up where she does by Legends and Lattes, which is a lot later on in her life. I kind of get the foundations from this one. I feel like it really does give us insight into who she is and where she has learned what she wants, and I really appreciated that. There is a love interest in this one, which does become a fair bit of the plot as well. So be warned if you're not that interested, it maybe isn't for you, but actually I found it quite a fun love interest. I felt like they bounced well off of one another, and I liked that, and I think they had a bit of realism to them as well with kind of how they framed their relationship, shall we say. And overall, I do think there is a lot to like here. It's a lot of great characters, a lot of fun references to books and stories and bookshops, and some magic dusted in there as well. So I really enjoyed it. I think I read the majority of it in one night, which is always a good sign. And I just, fell in love with falling back into a Travis book. And I gave this a 4.5 out of 5 stars, which is the same rating I gave Legends and Lattes. So I definitely think for me, I enjoyed them equally. I just thought they were great and I would highly recommend them, especially for this time of year. So do be on the lookout for this one when it comes out in early November, because it's well worth picking up. And if you can't wait, then by all means pick up Legends and Lattes if you haven't already. I'll try and find my review and link that because I loved that one as well. Speaking of books that talk about books or books that deal with more books, this one is very much that. Now, this is an ARC copy, which is why it looks a little bit different, but this is The Book That Wouldn't Burn by Mark Lawrence, and I really enjoyed this. However, it did take me a long time to read it. It's a bit chunky, but also I kind of fell off reading when I started this, not through any fault of the book, just my mental headspace wasn't there for reading. So I started it way back at the start of summer, and then I only finished it very recently. But with that being said, I don't think that was the book's fault. I do think that was all just my mental headspace with reading. And I got straight back into this. When I did pick it back up again, I was like, oh, I remember exactly where I am. I was enjoying this and I just need to get back into the story. So we follow two characters mainly. We have Livera, never quite sure how you say her name, who really reminded me actually of Lyra from His Dark Materials. I had a very, very similar, a similar vibe from her. She just gave me that same feeling a little bit, which was nice because I enjoy that. And then we also have Eva, and they are different characters. They don't know each other at all. They're through actually different time periods as well. And they both live in a world where there is this humongous library. And by humongous, I truly mean like unfathomable how big this library is. And it is kind of the crown of the world. Everyone wants it because all the knowledge from many eons and generations ago is within this library. But over the ages, we know that there has been a lot of strife between the populations of this world to who is going to control the library. And we don't really know why or the secrets behind it. This is something you uncover more as the book goes on, but essentially all you need to know is that the library is the center point for everything. Now, Livera, she comes from this town in the middle of nowhere. She grew up there, kind of uneducated in reading and that sort of thing, and she gets rescued by some passing mercenaries who are out helping to attack the enemy, which is called the Sabba. The Sabbas are seen as this uneducated, evil kind of race who want to steal the library and take over the city, and they attack these outer sort of towns where Livera is from, and they don't know why they attack there or anything, but Livera's town is attacked very early on, and she is kind of taken up to the city to be put into some sort of work or something there. And she ends up kind of getting associated with the library quite quickly. Whether or not she's going to take to it is kind of up in question because, as I say, she's had no real formal education. She's kind of looked down upon by her classmates and the people around her, especially some of the professors and librarians. They really think she's never going to succeed. But of course, she has an incredibly quick wit to her and mind, and she picks things up really fast. And that is kind of her superpower, I suppose. Like, she is very remarkable as a young girl, and she does prove herself over the book. And I won't say much more about her. Eva's storyline, meanwhile, is quite different. It still focuses on this weird library, but it's a completely different part from what Livera knows and sees. And he is with a couple of brothers or sisters. I say brothers or sisters because they're kind of like a found family. A couple of other children. He has been trapped in the library for a long, long time, many, many years, and he doesn't really know quite how he got there or why he's trapped there, and nor do the other children. They've all kind of got put into this place and essentially been stuck there. And there are some people who kind of help them to survive there, kind of raise them a little bit, but realistically they are trapped in this library and they have no way out. There is no physical way out that they can see. Now, obviously this leads to a pretty weird life and weird upbringing because he's surrounded by books on every single topic, but no escape out into the real world. So his memories and the memories of his siblings is kind of all they've got to go on for the reality of what's out there. And they have no concept of time. They don't know if they're from the same time or anything like that. It sounds like they all have different pasts. And as we go through the story, we learn more about their individual personalities and who they are and where they came from. But his setup is very different because he's just been trapped in this library for many, many years. Now, of course, this story does end up with the two of them, Livira and Eva, meeting. And I won't say how that happens, but it's an interesting method. And they don't really know what's going on when they meet each other, and they kind of have to try and figure it out. They, through various forms of trial and error, try and figure out what the library is and how it's getting them to connect to one another. And that is where the story really gets bigger. This world becomes a larger world than just the library and those two. It shows, especially in the later half of the book, it shows us what could come. Now, I'm not going to say any more on that because I don't want to spoil anything, but I will say that the ending of this book was very climactic and very exhilarating. And I definitely found myself wanting to know what was going to happen next, because there were some reveals that happened which I did not see coming. And to have like reveals happen that I didn't see coming is a pretty big deal. Often I get a hint of them. Not with this one. Definitely not. I really was taken on some twists and turns, and I enjoyed it a lot. And I certainly think the ending passages just made it really exciting about where we could go next. And this world is just fresh. It feels very vivid and very easy to imagine, this expansive library. And the way that Mark Lawrence describes all the rooms and the alleyways and the corridors and the dusty books and shelves and the weird lettering and system of categorization that's changed throughout the years. It all felt very realistic to imagine this crazy library, and I just found myself falling back into the story. Now, I will say that the middle section, because I had that break from reading and also just because it felt a little bit draggy at times, I personally really enjoyed the beginning and the end. I think the middle section maybe had a few moments where I felt a little bit slow going. But with that being said, for a chunky book, that happens a lot, and it wasn't enough to make me not want to read the book or not finish it. I actually really enjoyed going back to it after my break, and I definitely whizzed through the second half of this a lot quicker. So I would say it's very much worth reading. I'm very excited to find out where we're going to go next, and I ended up giving this one a solid 4 stars, and I can't wait to see what happens next. So if you have read either of these, or you plan to read them, because as I say, this one is not out yet, but this one is. It came out May of this year, so a couple months back, both fairly new. I'd love to have your thoughts on what you thought about them. Both are about books in a big way, and that as a reader is always fun, I think. So I'd love to have your thoughts. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you very soon in another video. Bye everyone.
Thank you for watching my video today. Go pick up a book, then come back and chat with me again.